Other conversation? Seeing none here, any there, Mr. Gannon?
Yes, sir. I have a gentleman here that'd like to speak to that.
Okay.
My name is Thomas Manning, 10 Sycamore Drive. I think it would be easier to understand what was his base pay and any other perks that he received. What's the percentage of increase? We can understand 10, 20%, but there's no way we can probably justify anywhere near a 30 or 40% increase. What's going to be his complete package compared to everybody else? And is there anybody else in the town that's going to receive a similar percentage increase in compensation this fiscal year?
We'll try to get answers to those questions for you, Sarah.
So, Mr. Moderator, on that lime green sheet that we talked about before, this does have all the pay rates of pay on the back. So you'll see a grade 14 at a step 1. We're going to use that top number of $86,257. And if you look up about midway through those columns, you'll see a grade 10 at a step 1. And then you see step 2, step 3, step 4 to the right. I believe one of the questions was, is this an unusual kind of rate of pay for the town? And the answer is no. You can see when we get to Article 4, when we talk about expenses and wages, there are folks who place at or above that Article 14 number. And I apologize, I'm forgetting the other question.
Well, I think it was, this article is only talking about pay grades and steps,
Correct.
And there was a question about benefits, but that's not contained in this article. There's not a commensurate. I think there were questions about what's the package.
Okay. So the percentage increase, just doing, because I'm just going to do a quick percentage calculation of the difference from a grade 14, step 1, which is 86,257 minus 6212. 2.7. All right, it's about a 30%. I apologize. Mr. Moderator, can I have a moment to confer with the town accountant as to which step this position currently
Please,
is at? Because I don't want to use the wrong number.
Yeah, no, we want to
Thank
get the
you.
right answer to the question.
Yeah.
He just confirmed that.
He did. He's at 10 cents. Yeah, right. Okay. All right, thank you everyone, and thank you for allowing me a minute, because there, as you can see on the pay grades, there is a vast difference between a step 1 and a step 6. The current position of the Director of Building Maintenance is at a grade 10, step 6. So if you look at grade 10 and go all the way to the right, that current rate of pay is $69,336. The grade 14, step 1 is $86,257, so we're talking about an increase of approximately $16,000. The question also about whether or not there were any other similar increases, as I think we alluded to before, we conducted a massive regrade last year of many other positions, of which this position and the Animal Control Officer were not included, one of the very few that weren't included in last year's regrade. We did present changes or potential changes to town meeting at last year's annual. Those were not taken up by the town. Those were not voted for by the town. And we are aware and cognizant of the fact that as things like changes to minimum wage occur at the state and federal level, and just being able to be competitive with other towns, the Wage and Personnel Board, Finance Committee, and the Board of Selectmen will need to continually evaluate this grading scale and the compensation associated with every step. Any changes to that, though, would be voted on at town meeting. So again, to echo Mr. Millius' point from the beginning of the meeting, nothing of that would change without you and your vote.
Thank you.
Mr. Moderator,
Yes, sir.
the other point to bring up is in the regrading, it requires either a supervisor construction's license, a plumber's license, or an electrician's license. So this person would be responsible for pulling a permit if there's work to be done where we do not have to have an outside contractor come in.
Thank you, sir. Any other discussion? Mr. Gaynor?
Yes, I have one lady that'd like to speak to this, please.
Good morning, Deborah Tinkham, 88 Paradise Lane. My question is there any citizens of this town that got a 30% raise during this COVID pandemic? I just think this is too excessive at this point in time. That's a lot of money.
I would agree with you in terms of we need to make it clear, we're talking about adjustments in grades and levels of experience, not raises per se. And I don't want to diminish the point that was just made. The discussion of there's an impact financially, but it's based on the levels of experience, as I understand it. Yes, Ms. Tarzi.
All right, thank you, Mr. Moderator. And I also want to clarify, because I mentioned by getting the correct information on this person's placement, step 6 on a grade 10, that means that their increase is a 23% increase, which I know is still a lot, but we're also, again, talking about adding on a significant building, a significant number of contractors and subcontractors for which they're responsible, adding on the necessity to pull permits and to hold specific licenses that the current grade 10 does not have. So I know that I didn't get a 30% raise for doing the same job I do, but I would expect as an employee and as someone who works to be compensated if I were going to take on a significantly larger proportion of operations for which I was not responsible prior. And that was the way that it was viewed by Wage and Personnel.
Thank you, Ms. Darcy. We have someone here too, I'm sorry.
Hi,
Okay.
Summer Schmaling, 32 Indian Path Road, but I want to speak as a school committee member because we had a lot of discussion regarding this position and how we were going to move forward, because we did lose our head custodian and we wanted to, seeing as the town, the school building is a town building, right? So we had a lot of discussion on whether or not the school was going to accept the town coming into, quote, our building and helping us with it. So when we lost our head custodian and we asked the town to kind of fill that gap to do a lot of things that our head custodian once did, it seemed more cost effective to have the town step in and be involved with all the buildings in the town and assisting us as a school, as opposed to hiring somebody else to fill the position and do what we had lost. Does that kind of make sense? So just on behalf of the school committee, we supported the town's involvement in overseeing this building. And as town meeting can remember, we replaced our roof, we did our siding and windows and doors. I mean, this building is a constant, ongoing project, and it's probably the largest department in town, and it is quite a huge responsibility for this position to undertake in taking on this building. So I just wanted to echo that.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I'm sorry. Keep missing you. And you're right in front of me. I have less of an excuse. I'm sorry.
Put me there on purpose.
No, never do that on purpose. Never.
I just had a question. So the current person that is in this job, does he have all the licensing, all the requirements, all the things that we need? And going forward, will that all be listed in the step 14 of what that job position is? Yes. Not just pushing someone who's doing the job into that position, but do they have all the necessary, everything that we need?
Yeah, I believe the answer to part of your question is if this change is made, it carries with the position. This grade and this level of experience is going to be required of whoever's in the position. Yes. But as to whether the person currently has the qualifications, I don't know the answer to that.
Mr. Moderator, yes, so the person currently occupying the grade 10 director position has these qualifications, but in addition, Wage and Personnel, like as I mentioned before, is concerned with making sure the job description is accurate if and when this position is ever vacant and we need to fill it. So that means that the next time we would go out to fill this job, if we had to, we would again take another look at the job description, make sure that we still agree with all those qualifications. I don't imagine us removing any of those licensure requirements or anything like that, and that would be the job description that gets posted to the public and used for hiring. So it's sort of two-pronged in that we always want to make sure, and what Wage and Personnel is concerned with is making sure that the job that someone is doing gets reflected in the job description, because then that becomes the template on which we're going to hire in the future. I hope that addresses the previous question.
Thank you. All right, how close are we to voting on this? Any other discussion in your end, Mr. Gaynor?
We have one other gentleman here that would like to speak to that.
Mel Conroy, 7 Birch Road. Could somebody give a number as to how much was expended in the school department budget for 2019-2020 for the head of custodial services?
Answer for that.
That's going to take me a few minutes. If the superintendent finds the information faster, please let me know.
No pressure, Mr. Andrews.
Yeah, no pressure. There's only been 3 school committee meetings every week for the past 6 weeks, so finding an email from all of these is just going to find the right one.
Understood. I'm just kidding. I appreciate you looking, sir. Trying to get an trying to get an answer. We have another question. Sure, why don't you ask? While we're getting that answer, if you've got another question?
No, she's the
I'm sorry.
She's the superintendent. She's the superintendent.
Oh, I'm sorry. So, yes, would you like to respond?
That's
I'm
the
s-
question.
So I'm in support of this article, just want to say Jingle on Cranberry Drive, but my question is, with school starting on Wednesday, what would happen if this position doesn't pass?
Not sure about that. We have an answer for that.
So if it does not pass, then the responsibilities for the school building remain with the school custodial staff. The school committee, and I'm not speaking for them on that behalf, but since they would remain with the school committee would have to figure out how they would handle who would get those responsibilities and how they would pay that person. The school budget is separate in the sense of, as was mentioned earlier during this discussion, this proposed change in grade is for a position that's fully funded out of the town side of the budget, not the school side. If the responsibilities of the school building are going to remain with the school, it has to be paid out of the school budget. And they'll have to figure that out, and I don't expect that they're going to have an immediate answer at this minute.
Thank you, Mr. Seelig.
Mr. Moderator,
Yes, sir?
over the years, fortunately I've been sitting here for a few of those, we've spent a lot of money on the school because of the fact that the school committee didn't want to spend money on certain items except for education and the welfare of the kids, which is important. But we put a new roof on the building, we put new siding, we put windows. All this stuff was done. We may have been able to lose some of that if we'd had somebody to be proactive and keeping watch over these particular items. The question should be asked is how much money we're going to save by having an engineer, a person already on board, who's able to pick these things up and not have to worry about bringing in a engineer from the outside and paying him several $1,000s just to tell us we need to replace the window, then we get to get the contractor. So this individual will do that without costing us a lot more money.
So, just to answer the previous speaker's question, I believe it's about a $5,000 savings that we're looking at for the school budget. I don't have the exact numbers. I have the top level budget right now. I can't dig into the subline items, but I believe it's a $5,000 reduction for the head custodian position for this swap and these responsibilities. So there's that reduction that we're basically moving into the town's portion. So I think to take on this role for, I think the school's getting a bargain at $5,000 to lose that responsibility. So, I think with all the improvements that have been done here, I think that having somebody with the job description and those capabilities to take over and be responsible for all the buildings makes sense. And I think everybody knows how fiscally conservative I am, and I was on the finance committee. And if I didn't think the position graded out at this, I would have challenged it.
Thank you, Mr. Andrews. Another speaker? Yes, question?
Yes, comment, please. John Taglini at 347 Elm Street. I think a lot of people are paying too much attention to percentages of this increase and not thinking about the responsibilities and the change in the description of what this role is. You're basically redefining this role, so you're redefining the payroll for it. So we got to get off this percentage of, oh, this person got a pay raise of 10%, or this person got a pay raise of 2%. I don't view this as a pay raise. I view this as a totally different role in what this person's responsibilities are. I think before we vote, people should stop and think about, this is not a pay raise, this is a change in this person's responsibilities. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. We have covered almost every corner of this that I can think of. Unless there's anything new that anyone would like to add, I would like to move that we go to a vote. Any indication on your end, Mr. Gaynor, of any other discussion, or can we move forward?
No, sir, no other indication for discussion.
Thank you, sir. All those in favor of Article 2, Section 2, please signify by holding up your green placards. All those who are opposed? Looks green in here, Mr. Gaynor. About you?
A majority is green.
Green. Okay. Section 2 of Article 2 passes. Thank you. And thank you, everyone, for your patience. I know it seems tedious, but people do need to be able to ask questions and get them answered. Thank you for all those people who are answering those questions, because it takes quite a bit of energy to do it. So we move on to Section 3 of Article 2.
Article 2, Amendment 3. I move that the town vote to establish the grade for the position of Lieutenant/Deputy Police Chief as grade 14.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded, the recommendation of the Finance Committee on Amendment 3 of Article 2.
On a 3-to-1 vote, the Finance Committee recommends.
Speaking to the article.
Okay, now as Wage and Personnel, we were approached by the police chief to, and this is part of the process if a new position were to be established, to review a job description and to assign a grade to this position. I want to be clear that this does not set any funding aside for this position. As of fiscal year 21, there's no money for this position. It is merely to establish the position and to assign a grade to it, just as with I've been explaining before, so that if and when we need to fill this position, we have a job description that we, and more importantly, you, the members of the town, have agreed on, and a rate of compensation that you, the members of the town, have agreed on. It's not to say that this position is going to be filled anytime soon, just that it creates the position. We conducted the same independent grading exercise as I mentioned before, myself and Mr. Andrews, and we arrived at a grade 14 level in terms of the responsibilities that this individual would have based on the job description that we reviewed, which was created by Chief Shavs and which we discussed with him at several of those open meetings for wage and personnel.
Thank you, Ms. Tarzan. Questions or discussion? Mr. Gaynor?
No indication of discussion, sir.
Yes, I'm sorry, raising your hand. Yeah, that's fine. Come on, please.
Paul Delaney, 145 Cranberry Drive. I'm just a little confused.
You want to stand
can't hear
close?
you neither.
You need to stand
Sorry.
closer to the mic.
Paul Delaney, 145 Cranberry Drive. This amendment is to establish a pay raise. Has the position been established?
Mr. Moderator, to answer the previous question, it's just to establish a position. This position does not currently exist. So we put forward any new positions that are being created have to be voted on by the members of annual town meeting.
So is this position being created later in this town meeting?
No, Mr. Moderator, to answer the previous question, no, there is no money for this position. This position is not being filled at this town meeting. It's literally just to create the position and to assign a grade to it if ever we were to seek out that position. And that would be something that the police department would have to, in a future fiscal year, place into its operating budget and then come before the finance committee to justify its inclusion.
So we are establishing a pay rate for a position that does not exist.
Correct. That's correct. Other discussion, other questions?
Up the back, Dennis.
In the back?
Joseph Wynn. I live on 53 Colby Drive. Why do we need this position?
Sure, Ms. Tarzan.
Mr. Moderator, if I could ask Chief Shavs to speak to some of the duties of this position and the potential benefits that the town would experience if at any point in the future it were to fill this position.
Sir? Thank you.
John Shavs, Chief of Police. So basically the proposal for the position of lieutenant is to create a better line of organizational. Right now we have 3 sergeants and a chief. The sergeants really have no seniority other than one of them scoring higher by 1 point. So it kind of gives a buffer between the sergeants, myself, gives better control for the lieutenant to oversee the sergeants to oversee the patrolmen, and and I think by looking at most departments in the area, you have that division, and I think that we should be creating that position.
Thank you, Chief. Any other discussion or questions?
You have somebody in the back.
In the back. Yeah. They're saying there's somebody in the back. You need to come to the microphone. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Dennis. I know you can't see me back there.
I can't, but I can hear you, Mr. Massio.
All right. So I'm ex-military. I'm a vet, so I just want to kind of add my 2 cents. And I understand what the chief is saying about a lieutenant, and what he's basically saying is a chain of command. And one of the things that I want to bring up with this is currently the issues that we're having with, or the issues that the police are dealing with. As far as the chief's concerned with what's going on and how it's a position that's being created, I can understand where the police department would need a lieutenant in place to help the chain of command, so that during these times, which are an anomaly, and a lot of the social media baloney that we see that the police are getting screamed at by pedestrians. They have a tough enough job as it is. I myself, I just wanted to put my opinion out there that I believe that this is a position that the police department should have in order to help our town. If that's the indication that I'm trying to give everybody, just so you understand, chain of command, everything kind of rolls downhill, and if they're already, he's already probably overseeing quite enough, and a lieutenant to kind of help that out, I don't see any reason why this is something we can't
Thank you, sir.
approve.
Appreciate that. Anything else, Mr. Gaynor? Anything in your room, sir?
No indication here, sir.
Oh,
In front of you, Dennis.
in front. I'm telling you, I'm having a tougher time seeing you guys, but
I'm sure you can see me.
no, you know what? My mask, I fog my glasses up. I can't see anything.
I'll make sure you can hear me.
You look
Rich,
great.
Rich
You look great.
Sanazar, Crystal Lake Road, Halifax. I think there's some confusion here. This gentleman, the elderly gentleman in the back, he was talking about dollar figures for this position. This is not the case. This is just creating this position to be approved for dollars at a later time. I do feel that there's need for a lieutenant. I've worked for a lot of departments. I actually started here under Teddy Broderick and Mike Manoogian years ago, and I transferred to Plymouth. Now you're talking apples and oranges, two different towns, huge size, but bigger towns require more personnel. Halifax is getting bigger, the population's getting bigger. We're not small. This is getting to be a bigger town. We get big business coming in. We get Stop and Shop, Walmart. They're building another building up here. There's business going in down on 106. This is a position that's definitely needed because the trickle-down effect, you get the chief, you get captains, lieutenants, sergeants, patrolmen. Everything needs to answer to someone. Everyone needs to answer to someone. Putting a lieutenant in a position like this is a good move for the town because it eliminates the chief worrying about actual hands-on stuff. Let the lieutenant handle that. Let the chief work with funding. Let him work with public relations. Let him work with anything that he can do other than tie himself into the station. So having someone answer everybody is the key. And I highly approve this position, just to be approved. And at a later date, do your survey of the towns, find out what your average lieutenant in a town the same size, population-wise to us, is making, and make the pay commensurate with his experience and what we can bring to the town. Nobody's going to walk in this position not having any experience. You need a guy that's a seasoned veteran. Just like you hire a chief. You've hired a chief with 25 years on as a patrolman, a sergeant, lieutenant. You hire an experience. So this is definitely a position this town needs. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Yes.
Paul Delaney, again, 145 Cranberry Drive. Again, we're talking, people are asking as if this is a position that's being created. If I understand, we are not creating this position. We are just setting a pay rate for a position that may be created at some nebulous time in the future. Is that correct?
Correct.
Just, Mr. Moderator,
Yes.
just to clarify, we're creating a position, we are assigning a compensation value to it, but we are not appropriating any funds toward that position this fiscal year, and we would again have to vote as a town at an annual town meeting if this position, let's say a year or 2 years from now, the chief and the police department wanted to fill this position, they would have to build into their wage line enough money to cover this position at this rate of pay that we've established. So you're correct in that no money is being spent on this fiscal year. We merely created the position and assigned a compensation rate to it so that if in future years we want to or need to fill this position, we'll be ready to roll with a job description that we can publicize and get out there.
Okay. So in that case, we are creating a position, we are creating a pay rate, we're just not filling that position at this time.
Exactly,
That's
exactly.
correct.
So
That's
no money is being spent and no one is being hired this fiscal year.
Okay. Unless there's anything, is there anything new? Yes?
Yes, right there.
Yeah, I'm sorry, ma'am. Yep.
Susan Hill, 54 Stony Ware Road. My question is just regarding if the sergeant is currently the highest level before the chief, what is the grade level of sergeant?
The sergeants are in the sergeant's contract. They're not in the wage and personnel grade and pay scale. So they're outside of it. There's no particular grade for a sergeant. Their wages are bound by the union contract. The lieutenant deputy chief, per the sergeant's contract, in fact, is not in the union. So if it's not in a union position, we need to have a grade for it. The sergeants are in the union contract.
Okay, seeing no discussion here.
One more.
Oh, one more, I'm sorry. Yes,
Hello, Joseph Wynn Jr. again, 53.
you want to
Colby
speak,
Drive.
move closer to the mic and speak up, please?
Joseph Wynn Jr., 53 Colby Drive. The population in Halifax, I mean, I've been here for almost my entire life, since '96. So in the past 30 years, the population has gone up maybe 1,000 people in Halifax, maybe like 1,500. But in a town of 7,800 people, I don't see justification for opening a position that then leads to a process in which, you know, in a year or two we'll need to fill that position. We don't necessarily need that position now. I think that's setting up for future, I mean, not appropriating any money like you said, but, you know, having something set forth for the future. I don't see how that's a problem that we face in this town today or in the next 5 years.
Okay.
So that's just.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Great. Mr. Gaynor, any other discussion in your end?
Yes, sir, I have a gentleman here that'd like to speak to it.
Thomas Manning, 10 Sycamore Drive. I think the chief will have no trouble recruiting a lieutenant from outside the town of Halifax. And I think it would be a lot easier to let us know up front that do we necessarily have to give a sergeant a step up rather than just keep these sergeants where they are and let them compete for the job. And also, anybody who gets this position, will there be a minimal education requirement like police science, criminology, or anything on that idea? That should give you a basic idea of where we're going with the police department. And we could go, we don't have to go and train somebody. We can start from strength and hire somebody from the city who would be glad to come out to a nice clean town like Halifax, where it's low key, less stress, maybe not as much money, but you can live on a lot less out here than you do in the city.
Yeah, I thank you, sir. I think we're going to stay in the four corners of the argument that we're literally, and I think it's been said a number of times, we're enabling a position, we're defining it, we're giving pay grade so that eventually there could be the possibility of filling the position, but if it is, it has to come before the town, it has to be included in the budget, and has to go through the process as a hiring process. Once all of that goes down, is already in place. So, anything new? I think we're close to running and making a decision here. Yes, Mr. Gaynor?
No further discussion indicated here.
Okay, all of those who are in favor of Amendment 3 in Article 2, please signify by putting your green sheets up. All of those who are opposed? Okay. How about your room, Mr. Gaynor?
Majority passes, 14 to 4.
Green, okay. Yeah.
Green.
Okay, Amendment 3 of Article 2 passes. Thank you. And again, thank you for the great discussion. Amendment 4 of Article 2.
Mr. Moderator, I move that the town vote to pass over action on Amendment 4 of Article 2.
Second.
Okay, we are on the Finance Committee's recommendation of passing over Amendment 4 of Article 2.
The Finance Committee recommends.
Okay, we are being asked to pass over this amendment. Any explanation?
When we began the open hearing process of potential changes to the wage and personnel bylaw, there was a proposed amendment to change the disciplinary process. Wage and personnel did not take any action on that as a board, and there may be structural changes that we'll talk about momentarily in an upcoming amendment that would sort of obviate that discussion anyway, or at least significantly change it. So we felt it was best to not take any action on that at this time. So that is why we vote to pass over.
Any discussion on passing over Amendment 4 of Article 2? Mr. Gaynor, any indication?
No indication for discussion.
See none here. Please, all those who signify by passing over Amendment 4 of Article 2, please raise your green sheet. If you are opposed to passing over, please raise your red sheet. Mr. Gaynor?
Passes here, sir.
Okay, we have passed over our Amendment 4 of Article 2. Amendment 5, and, 5, it looks like B, but I guess it's all one, correct?
Correct. Mr.
Amendment
Moderator.
5 of Article 2.
Mr. Moderator, I move that the town vote to amend Chapter 35, Section 16, New Employees, Paragraph B, as printed in the warrant.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Recommendation of the Finance Committee on Amendment 5 of Article 2.
The Finance Committee recommends. The overview of this is it just changes the amount and extends the amount of time that positions are posted for. Currently in the bylaws, it's 5 business days. This amendment would change it to 10 calendar days, which allows for additional time for that post to be seen, to be shared with qualified applicants, etc. So that's all that this would really do, is just require that we have the job posted for 10 calendar days as opposed to 5 business days.
Thank you. Any discussion on Amendment 5? Mr. Gaynor?
No discussion.
Seeing none here, all those who are in favor of passing Amendment 5 of Article 2, please signify by your green sheets. Any opposed? Green here, Mr. Gaynor.
Passes here, sir.
Amendment 5, Article 2 passes. We move on to our Amendment 6 of Article 2.
Mr. Moderator, I move that the town vote to amend Chapter 35, Section 26, Holidays, as printed in the warrant.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Recommendation of the Finance Committee on Amendment 6 of Article 2.
The Finance Committee recommends.
Okay, speaking to the article.
Okay, so what this would do is just equalize the holiday pay rates. You'll notice the paragraph specifies permanent full-time employees, permanent part-time employees, call firefighters, and special police officers. It just makes sure that everyone who is called in for work on Thanksgiving, Christmas, and New Year's, which are identified as holidays, that they receive the same holiday pay as other employees.
Okay, it has been moved, seconded. Recommendation of the Finance Committee. Any discussion on Amendment 6 of Article 2? Mr. Gaynor?
No indication for discussion here, sir.
All those in favor of Amendment 6 and Article 2, please signify by raising your green sheet. Any opposed? Red sheets. Mr. Gaynor?
Unanimous here.
Amendment 6 of Article 2 passes. Article 2, Amendment 7.
Mr. Moderator, I move that the town vote to amend various sections of Chapter 35, Wage and Personnel Bylaw, as printed in the warrant in Amendment 7.
Second.
It has been moved and seconded. Recommendation of the Finance Committee on Amendment 7 of Article 2.
The Finance Committee recommends. Speaking from the Wage and Personnel side now, all this does is change antiquated gender pronouns in the current bylaws. So all the changes that you see, I know it's a lot of text, it just gets rid of any gender-specific pronouns in the text. And it's something that we've been doing in previous annual town meetings as well, and we just found more of them as we started going through more of the bylaw.
Okay, great. Any discussion on Amendment 7 of Article 2? Mr. Gaynor?
No indication for discussion here.
You know, I knew he was going to say that, but I really enjoy being able to get Mr. Gaynor to go up and down like as an exercise thing, you know? Okay, seeing no further discussion here, all those in favor of Amendment 7, Article 2, please signify by raising your green sheets. Any opposed? Please signify by raising your red sheets. Mr. Gaynor, how did we do there?
Unanimous yes vote.
Amendment 7, Article 2 passes. Moving on 2, Article 2 and Amendment 8.
Mr. Moderator, I move that the town vote to pass over action on Amendment 8 of Article 2.
Okay, it's been moved to pass over
Second.
and seconded. Recommendation of the Finance Committee to pass over, take no action on Amendment 8 of Article 2.
My apologies, Mr. Moderator. The Finance Committee recommends.
Finance Committee recommends passing over. Any discussion? Mr. Gaynor?
No indication for discussions.
All right, all of those in favor of passing over Amendment 8 of Article 2, please signify by raising your green sheets. Any opposed to passing over, please raise your red sheets. Okay, Mr. Gaynor, how do we do there?
Unanimous vote to pass over.
We are passing over Amendment 8 of Article 2. Moving on to Amendment 9 of Article 2.
Mr. Moderator, I move that the town vote to pass over action on Amendment 9 of Article 2.
It's been moved to pass over. Need a second?
Second?
It's been moved and seconded to pass over.
Troy seconded.
What's that?
Troy seconded.
Troy seconded, okay. Moved to pass over Article 9, recommendation of the Finance Committee?
The Finance Committee recommends pass over.
Speaking to the article as the Personnel Committee, yes?
We had originally placed the town on notice that these may be issues we would discuss when the warrant first went to print, and since then the Wage and Personnel Board has taken no action.
Any discussion? Mr. Gaynor? He's
No
already up.
indication, no indication for discussion.
All of those in favor of passing over, taking no action on Amendment 9 of Article 2, please signify by raising your green sheets. Thank you. Any of those who are opposed to passing over, raise your red sheets. Seeing none, Mr. Gaynor?
Unanimous to pass over.
Amendment 9, Article 2 is passed over, taking no action thereon. Article 2, Amendment 10.
Mr. Moderator, move that the town vote to amend various sections of Chapter 35, Wage and Personnel Bylaw, as printed in the warrant in Amendment 10.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Article 10, recommendation of the Finance Committee.
Finance Committee recommends. Speaking to this, a lot of you probably picked up this handout at the front. It says background to Article 2, Amendment 10 of the annual town meeting. Purpose to disband the Wage and Personnel Board and transfer duties to other departments at town meeting. As I mentioned briefly at the outset, in the absence of any citizen volunteers who aren't already engaged in other capacities in town government, the Wage and Personnel Board has to exist to function for disciplinary proceedings, improving evaluations of employees, etc. Right now, and at least for the last year or so since I've been on, we haven't been able to have any citizen volunteers, so that has meant that one member of the Board of Selectmen and one member of the Finance Committee has been sent to deal with these issues. This has been a persistent problem, though, not just since I've been on, so this bylaw change would disband the Wage and Personnel Board, and as you can see in the 7 bullet points below, would redistribute the duties of this board to the Finance Committee, to the Board of Selectmen, and in my personal opinion as a member of Wage and Personnel, I think this makes the process far more equitable to town employees, and it removes no power from you, the members of annual town meeting. You would still vote on all the kinds of things we've been voting on, new positions, pay increases, etc. All that remains the same. It just ensures that there's more oversight of various human resource and personnel issues than currently exists. And as I mentioned, I think it distributes the workload far more evenly than it currently is, and will allow us to undertake some of the projects like comparing our compensation to those of other towns and handling changes to minimum wage rates, state and federally, a lot easier than if it's just 2 people who are already serving on other boards and then being asked to do additional service on Wage and Personnel.
Any discussion on the amendment? I did already ask
Dennis,
for
you have
Finance
one.
Committee, did I not?
Come,
I
there's
did,
somebody,
didn't I?
Dennis,
No?
somebody at the mic.
I'm sorry. Oh, yes, ma'am.
How you doing? This is Amy Troop with 10 Hillside Avenue. I think that we should be talking right now about what it feels like to be on a board and how you can be treated sometimes while being on that board. And I think that maybe if we were a little bit more welcoming to new people, that they would step up. But they're bullied and afraid. That's what's going on. And that is what I've been told. That is what I've experienced. And that is why, and I would disregard thinking that we should get rid of something that is necessary for a checks and balance. We need wage and personnel, and we need more people from the town to step up. We have a lot of new faces here today, and I think this is a good time to advertise that we need you guys to be on the wage and personnel to watch your tax dollars be spent.
Thank you. Mr. Gaynor, any indication of discussion or questions?
No indication of further discussion here.
Seeing none here.
Mr. Moderator?
Yes.
I just want to add, and I know that there's a lot of text in the warrant, but there's it's sort of bullet points here. If we look at how the duties of this board end up being distributed, it puts more eyes on it. Right now, I would love to have more citizen volunteers or folks who aren't already on other commissions and boards working with me, and I have worked with some folks in the past. But it's a lot. It's a lot to give up your evenings. It's a lot to give up additional time on the weekends. We're all facing, time fatigue, right? Probably even more so now, even though allegedly it's easier to work from home. But ultimately, if those things aren't being done and we have this chronic problem, then I personally don't think it's the best method of operation to have two people reviewing things that involve personnel matters when we could have multiple folks on it. And I'm not shirking, because either way, if I stay on Finance Committee, I'm still going to be doing the work. Whoever is sent from the Board of Selectmen still does the work under this reorganization. It just means more eyes get on it. There's more hands to help with the lifting, to do the reviews, to do these kind of broad scale evaluations that we want to do concerning grade changes and compensation levels. And, I have to be honest, having been on the committee for a year and a half or so and having tried to resign but having to come back because there was no one else to fill it, this isn't just a selfish move on my part to have other people help do the work. I think it honestly is in the best interest of not only the employees of the town, but of you, the members of annual town meeting, to allow for a more open process for more people to be on. If more people want and would volunteer, obviously I think that would be great, but to this point and over the last couple of years, that hasn't yet happened.
Again, this is Amy Troop from 10 Hillside Ave. I started serving on the beautification committee in 2012 or 13. I'm sorry if I can't give you the exact year. We couldn't get a quorum for years. Now we have a quorum. And there is something going to be passed over today on our warrant that was going to increase our membership to a 7-member board from a 5. I was always against that because I thought there'll be times that we're going to have hard time getting a quorum. So I thought, we're just getting a quorum now. I don't think that we should push our luck. But if it's only been 1 year since Wage and Personnel has not had a quorum and we've had to fill it different ways, then I would say, hey, everybody at town meeting and anybody who's going to watch this on Area 58, we need volunteers to watch our wallets. And I think that this would be a very bad time to disband Wage and Personnel.
Thank you, Mrs. Troop. Ms. Troop. Mr. Gaynor, any questions, comments on your end? Hang on one second. Did I lose Mr. Gaynor?
He's taking a nap.
No indication of any further discussion.
I'm sorry. Sir, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Hi, Summer Schmeling, 32 Indian Path Road. Just a quick question. We talk a lot about 10 towns that we compare ourselves to and towns in the surrounding areas. Is this a typical trend where they're disbanding their wage and personnel boards also? Or is this kind of unique to our situation here in Halifax?
Let's see if we can get an answer for you. Any sense of other towns?
Mr. Moderator, each community handles human resources differently. Some, in fact, have human resource departments. We don't. We've decided, obviously, through town meeting action not to do it that way. Some of them will do as what's being proposed here, is delegate the various responsibilities and duties to other departments. One of the points that being made is the current members or past members right now of Wage and Personnel talking just in the last year about the lack of being able to find volunteer citizens to serve on Wage and Personnel. It hasn't been just 1 year. It's been several years. I don't know the last time we had a majority of volunteer citizens on Wage and Personnel. This is not to denigrate.
Charlie, what is the answer? We don't need your opinion.
Ms. Troop, you need to direct your comments to me. Thank you. Mr. Seelig.
This is not, everybody has everything going on in their lives right now. Whether they're serving here, they're even here right now, taking a Saturday morning and spending several hours of their time out here. They're serving on boards and committees, or they're out there volunteering at other organizations. Everybody's pressed for time. What the hope is that current members of the Finance Committee, the members of the Board of Selectmen, they'll be working on exactly these matters. These matters, in fact, go back to them anyhow for recommendations. You've been hearing from the Finance Committee with recommendations, other Wage and Personnel's Board's recommendations. You've gotten feedback from the Board of Selectmen. You'll be having more people rather than fewer people looking at these issues and making recommendations to you. You're the ultimate check and balance. You out there are. You're going to be the ones still making the decisions on whether wages go up, on changes in grades, in changes in benefits, in changes in the bylaw. You will lose absolutely no rights by this change. You'll simply be changing who's going to bring this information to you for your decision.
Thank you, Mr. Seelig.
Let's go.
Seeing no.
Yeah, but you have a question in the back.
And back here? Yeah, sure.
So what, David Marcio, 16 10th Ave. So what you're saying is that we have members on different boards, Finance Committee, Board of Selectmen, that already have different positions in the town, assessors, whatever, okay? So you want to put more on them instead of actually, when's the last time a posting was put up? And I'm just asking because I don't know. When was the last time a posting was put up for volunteers for the position that we're saying we wanted?
Mr. Moderator, to that question, I believe an email just went out maybe last week or the week before for additional volunteers, and we post it continuously on the website, and we made the announcements during our open meetings as well for Wage and Personnel. So it's not even just sort of once a quarter or anything like that. It's constant. We need volunteers, and the Wage and Personnel Board is also listed on the talent bank form for when people do want to volunteer. They could check off if they're interested in Wage and Personnel.
Okay, maybe we should vote on a time limit as to whether or not to find some people to volunteer, to see if there are people today listening that say, hey, oh, I didn't realize that, I didn't look on the website, or I didn't hear a week ago. Maybe you can get more help through the town. Maybe we can add another Board of Selectmen member so that they can specifically help you with the tasks that you need. You know, have we exhausted all options before we just go ahead and disband it? Thank you.
Thank you,
Mr.
sir.
Moderator,
Yes, Mr. Garin.
the Wage and Personnel Board has been one of the most sensitive boards in the town for years. 30-some years ago, I was the only person on the Wage and Personnel, along with Peg Fitzgerald, who's our accountant at the time. When you're dealing with making decisions that affect other people's lives, it can be very scary. And I think that's one of the reasons a lot of people don't want to go to Wage and Personnel, because you're dealing with people's lives and their livelihood as to what they're going to get for pay in their paychecks. So it's a difficult board to fill. We've only had a few years where it has been a full board, but everybody showed up. So I'm hoping that in the future, I'd much rather have a board member from the Board of Selectmen sit on there. I think it would be nice to have an ad hoc group on the wage and personnel, citizens from the town, who have a lot more to invest in than we would.
Mr. Moderator, sorry, if I may just advertise the fact too that the Finance Committee, who would absorb a lot of the responsibilities under this reorganization, currently has 2 openings and will soon have a 3rd opening, which means that we'll barely be able to make quorum. We need 4 people at every meeting to actually get business done. So right now we're at the point where if one of us gets a cold or someone has a childcare issue, we can have a meeting, but we can't take any votes on anything. So if folks are interested in volunteering, this is just sort of an aside to please consider the Finance Committee, because if you have interest in these personnel issues and we pass this reorganization, you would be able to very directly be engaged with how the town spends its money in a very meaningful way. And all of us take part in that, that responsibility as well. So that is just a bit of an advertisement.
Oh, another
Speaker?
question.
Yeah, you have another. Somebody, Dennis, yes.
Yep. Dennis is a speaker in the middle.
In the middle? Yes. Thank you. I'm sorry. I did see you.
Hi.
I thought there was somebody else too, but go ahead. I'm sorry.
Ashley DeSessa, 17
Could you step closer and speak up?
Ashley DeSessa, 17 Riders Way. I just wanted to, it's not really, it's more of a statement. The email that was sent out to us on 9/2 looking for volunteers actually did not list the wage and personnel as somebody needing volunteers.
My apologies. I thought that because it was on the talent bank form, it had been included in the email. So I do apologize for
And if you
misspeaking.
click the where's more, when it directs you to the website, you're also not listed there either. It's the Finance Committee, Elementary School, Council of Aging, Library of Trustees, Cultural Council, Park Commission, and Youth and Recreation.
Thank
So
you.
I'm just curious how long you thought you were being posted and maybe you weren't, and that's why maybe you haven't filled the seat.
Thank you. Mr. Hang on 2 seconds. Mr. Gaynor?
Yes, we have one gentleman here who'd like to speak to.
Ed Murphy, 20 Larry Ave. I'm just curious, if this is disbanded, could it be reestablished at some point if needed, or we feel that it shouldn't have been disbanded in the first place? What happens then?
And the quick answer that is, as far as I understand it, is town meeting can reinstate committees and board. You folks are the power, so you can vote for this or against it, and then you can revisit it. At least that's my understanding, Ms. Tarsis.
Mr. Matter, that's correct. If the town in a future year wanted to reorganize wage and personnel or amend the bylaw to create some other entity that would do the same kinds of things during the open hearing process in January, that amendment could be put forward, and that would, in the same way that all these other bylaws have appeared, be on your annual town meeting warrant. So as we mentioned before, and I want to keep emphasizing that this doesn't take anything away from you, the voters, and the taxpayers. You still get to make all the decisions that you get to make, that you currently get to make regarding personnel issues. And if you wanted to recreate a wage and personnel board or any other kind of wage and personnel concoction, you could definitely do that through an amendment to the bylaw.
Thank you. Any other comments? Don't see any here. Mr. Gaynor?
No, sir, no further discussion here.
Okay, it's been moved, seconded, recommended by the Finance Committee. All those in favor of Amendment 10 of Article 2, please signify by raising your green sheets. All those who are opposed? I think I'm going to ask, Mr. Gaynor, did you have I'm just curious.
We have 11 in favor votes and 4 negative votes.
It's a little closer here, and I hate to do this, but I think I want to count if I can. Can we get counters for this? So we're going to be asking again. Well, let me get my counters in line here. Okay, so when you signal me when you're ready, ask again. Okay, all of those who are in favor, again, of Amendment 10 of Article 2, please raise your green cards to signify you are in support of the amendment. Sagan? I did, yes. Yes, I do want to count. All right, so again, if you are in favor of the amendment being proposed, Amendment 10 of Article 2, please raise your green sheet so that the counters can see it. Please, yeah, raise them high so they can be counted, please. We've got the tables up here. Okay, you got that count? Okay, so all of those who are opposed to Amendment 10 of Article 2, please raise your red tags.
You serving hamburgers? Hamburgers? I can't do this.
43 to 42.
On a vote of 43 to 42, the Amendment 10 passes for Article 2. Your point of order?
Yes, point of order. Can I ask town council if we need to remove a board 2/3 vote?
Yeah, repeat the question, Amy.
So to get rid of a board, should we not need a 2/3 vote? Is it part of our bylaws and it would be a change in our bylaw?
Is it
I'm aware of majority vote.
majority vote on bylaws?
I thought it was a 2/3 vote to change a bylaw.
Zoning bylaw.
Only the zoning bylaws? Okay.
Okay. Article 3. No?
We have amendment of,
Oh, I'm sorry.
Mr.
Second,
Mon-
it's only my second mistake. I mean, it's been 2 hours.
that pass or should it get passed by
11.
one vote?
Article 2, Amendment 11, is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. Yeah, okay. Thank you. All right. Need a motion?
Mr. Moderator,
Yes, ma'am.
I move that the town vote to approve a 1.6% pay increase for wage and personnel employees according to the, move to approve a 1.6% pay increase for wage and personnel employees.
It's been moved
Second.
and seconded. Recommendation of the Finance Committee on Amendment 11 of Article 2.
On a 1-3 vote, the Finance Committee does not recommend.
Finance Committee does not recommend. And speak to the article.
So the Wage and Personnel Board had a couple of things to consider, and again, we don't take decisions regarding across-the-board increases lightly, even in the best of economic times, and certainly even more so now when we understand that there's a lot of hardship. Given the upcoming articles that we have not yet discussed, which involve collective bargaining agreements with some of the unions in town that have already negotiated in good faith with the Board of Selectmen for a 1.6% increase, we want to maintain equity across all of those who are employed by the town, regardless of their union position or lack thereof. This 1.6% increase would apply to all folks who fall under the wage and personnel's purview. I believe it would, and Mrs. Nolan, the town accountant, can correct me if I'm wrong, but the last figure we used last night was approximately $18,000 at a complete cost to the taxpayer, spread over everyone, not per person. So it would add to the town's budget an amount of $18,000 for this 1.6% increase. Even more so, philosophically, 2 points that Wage and Personnel discussed. One was Wage and Personnel is concerned with the welfare of employees and concerned with personnel issues, and Finance Committee is the one that discusses the actual finance, right, whether or not we can afford things. So the Wage and Personnel really took into account how we feel about being able to compensate our employees in the midst of an economic hardship, but also to try to keep up with inflation rates. A 1.6% increase does not represent a cost of living increase, and it does not fully account for inflation rates. Moreover, we know what we have in front of us for fiscal year 21, even though, as we've mentioned before, we would normally have done this process in May, and we would start the fiscal year 22 process in December. We're now a few months from having to start the fiscal year 22 process, and all that we know about fiscal year 22 is that we know nothing. It could be far worse than this year for all that we know, and we feel that while we have the funds to, again, make an equitable increase across all wage and personnel employees, Wage and Personnel would like to advocate to do that. Mr. Moderator, with your permission, may I now change hats and speak as the Finance Committee Chair?
I had a feeling I was going to ask you to do that anyway. Yes,
Okay.
please.
Okay, and I appreciate everyone's letting me talk ad nauseum on this article, but the Finance Committee did not vote to recommend this, and again, this is where the Finance Committee was looking strictly at the numbers and is cognizant of the fact that it's a difficult optic to advocate for a pay raise in the midst of high levels of unemployment, in the midst of a lot of economic uncertainty. So this is where we get those two that are playing off each other. Wage and Personnel is voting 2-0 unanimously to recommend this increase. The Finance Committee does not recommend on a 3-1 vote.
Thank you. Conversation. Questions? Seeing none? Am I correct? I don't see any here. Mr. Gaynor, do you see any?
Yes, you have one gentleman like to discuss it.
Okay, thank you.
Tom Manning. Look, I understand 18,000 isn't a lot of money, but you got about 60% of the people in this town out of work, and 1/3 of them haven't had a dime come in for over 5 or 6 months, 1/3 of the population. Not one town employee lost a dime, never missed a second. His checks were deposited in his account every single week. Never missed a beat. Everyone else is suffering, and I hear this, oh, poor me. Don't get me wrong. If you earn it, you deserve it. But have some empathy, some sympathy for everybody else in this damn town. It seems like you don't give a damn. The teachers' unions, they don't want to go back to school. Well, they've been on vacation since March, and we're sick and tired of it. And if you don't straighten it out, we're going to kick everybody's ass out of office. And it's happening in November.
Sir, you're going to have to lower your tone, and I'm going to ask you to be much more respectful than that.
Okay.
I understand you're passionate.
Well,
Wait, please hear me out.
Okay, go ahead.
You have a point to make, and I appreciate that, and I'd like you to make it. What you're sounding like is very attacking. So that's
no,
not
I'm not
what
attacking anybody.
I'm just saying.
But we're angry. The town is angry because you don't speak to the people of the town.
Well, sir,
you think because you live here, but you don't speak for us.
Sir, hold up. You are speaking. Don't speak for anyone else. You're speaking for yourself.
Well, maybe you should ask everybody else. Ask them if they sign a piece of paper blank and put yes or no and see if they believe what I'm saying is true or if it's not true. And you might be in for a shock. Maybe 80-90% of the people in this town feel the same way. And every time you ask for more, we don't mind giving you more because we know you earn it. Okay?
Can I take it from your comments that you are not in favor of this article, sir?
18,000. You know what I'm going to do? Yes, I'm going to vote for the 18,000 because it's not that much of a difference. It's insignificant.
Okay.
But it's not the point. It's what everybody deserves in this town. They deserve a fair shake.
Yep.
If you're a cop, you earn your wage. Yep. All right? They work 24 hours a day. The firemen, they work 24 hours a day. They earn every dime they make.
Yep.
But
and I want to thank you for
we're not getting a fair shake in this town.
I want to thank you for your feedback because when you've calmed down, you actually, if you had asked me to guess what side of the issue you were on, I was going to guess wrong. Okay, so I thank you. So you are speaking in favor of the article, but you want us to know how challenging it is for everyone
Yes, because
out there.
18,000 isn't a lot of money spread out through the whole town.
Understood.
You know, that's nothing. But there are a lot of people that don't have anything right now. 18,000 would be like $1 zillion to them, and nobody thinks about them. It just seems like it's not like you intentionally don't think about them. It seems like our decisions that we make are always in the interest of somebody whose pockets are full, and not half empty.
In a rare moment for me, sir, you've got me saying thank you for your passion. Thank you for caring about people. And the last thing I would say to you, and this is an editorial note, so you don't have to pay attention to it.
Sure.
But don't sell people so short. I think there are a lot of people who do care about what you're talking about.
Yeah, it just doesn't seem like any. All we hear is the negative, and we don't hear any of the positive.
I hear you. Thank you for your input. Anyone else here on this side? Yes.
Summer Schmeling, 32 Indian Path Road. I just want to clarify one thing that gentleman just said. The 18,000 that he's speaking of spread across the town does not include fire, does not include police, and does not include the school, Silver Lake or Halifax Elementary, because they are separate negotiating departments.
Thank you.
Mr. Moderator?
Yes, ma'am.
Oh, over here.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Sorry. That is correct, and that was why I mentioned from the wage and personnel side, the issue of equity, since some of the contracts that have already been under negotiations with the unions that were previously mentioned have concurred and have agreed to a 1.6% increase, which the town will vote on soon. You'll see those articles coming up. That's the reason that wage and personnel fell on the 1.6% number, was to maintain equity across all town employees, so that certain employees weren't getting an increase while other employees got no increases.
Thank you. Seeing no other discussion here, Mr. Gaynor?
We have one to discuss.
Okay, thank you.
Deb Tinkham, 88 Paradise Lane. I find it kind of interesting that the Finance Committee won't approve a 1.6% increase for the everyday people who are not under contracts. But again, they recommended a huge increase for other departments. I don't see the equity in that.
Mr. Moderator?
Yes.
Just to clarify the previous point, we haven't reached the point at which the Finance Committee presents its recommendations on any of the union articles, but I can, if I may speak out of turn, that is the case that the Finance Committee is recommending those is not true.
Okay.
I'll save that discussion for when we get there, but...
Understood. Okay. Thank you. All right, I sense we are ready for a vote. So I'm going to ask or try under Amendment 10, Article 2. All those in favor, please signify with their green sheets. All those who are against. All right, I'm going to ask another standing from this one. Another count.
Okay.
Yeah, we're going to do another count. That's...
Dennis?
Yes.
Tell Bert you're going to ask for a count.
A count, yes.
You tell Bert that.
Oh, Bert. I'm sorry. Bert, oh, he just went out.
Bert left.
Uh-oh.
I thought we were recounting.
Uh-oh. Bert, we're going to do a count on this. Don't give me the count now,
All right.
because it would sway people. So we're going to have a count of this vote. So when the counters are ready, we'll re-ask the question. And thank you, counters. I meant to do that before. Okay, so all of those people who are in favor of the proposed Amendment 11 of Article 2, please raise your green sheet. And please raise it fairly high so the counters can see you. Thank you for doing that. Keep them up.
Are you not raising your green sheet? He didn't count. Bob.
They got us.
Oh, right. Okay. All of those who are not in favor of Amendment 11 of Article 2, please raise your red tags.
No wonder my stomach is growling this fly.
What's that?
I'd like to get through 4. I'd like to get through the budget.
Yeah, at least do that. Oh, then we might not get a quorum.
I don't think we have a quorum.
No, I don't think so either.
Mr. Gaynor, can I get your count?
Yes, the vote was 10 in favor, 4 opposed.
Passed 46-33.
Are they counting the?
Passed
Huh?
Did they count the people in the hall?
I don't know.
The counters?
Okay.
Held that.
Amendment 11 of Article 2 passes. 43?
46, 33.
46 to 33. And thank you again, counters.